Hello, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the co-founder and CEO of DLA Ignite. Today, I've got with me Declan Mulkeen. Declan's from Strategic IC, and we're going to talk about account-based marketing. Like, what is it? But before we get into it, Declan, tell everybody where they can get hold of you.
Hi, Tim. Well, first of all, thanks for having me this afternoon. I suppose the best place to find me is on LinkedIn. I'm the CMO of Strategic IC. We're an ABM agency. And if you look for myself, Declan Mulkeen, Mulkeen, you'll find me, no doubt, on LinkedIn, where I'm pretty active, actually.
So Declan, for some people where English isn't their first, or Irish isn't their first language, Declan is Declan, and then Mulkeen is
Mulkeen.
Fine. And I know you're pretty active. Well, you are very active. But there's been a lot of talk lately about account-based marketing, and I guess from COVID-19, we need to start looking at maybe doing some things new. So what is it? What is it, and why would somebody want to look at account-based marketing?
Well, I mean, I think over the course of the last 5 or 10 years, people have become very familiar with other terms such as inbound marketing and lead generation, and a lot of times the demand generation as well is another term that people tend to use in sales and marketing. And a lot of these terms kind of get mixed up a little bit, but generally speaking, over the course of the last decade or so, particularly in light of a company called HubSpot that kind of led the charge, companies have become very much used to creating lots of demand. And that has been primarily through, creating various pieces of content, promoting it through various channels such as LinkedIn, etc., and then driving people to download in exchange for an email address. And then you start off a whole sales process, which involves contacting somebody to say, "Hey, thanks for downloading our ebook. I'd love to talk to you, and I'd love to sell you our product." Now, that methodology has worked very well, but at the same time, it hasn't, because it's created something of a problem for companies as there's been such a generation of leads, what we call marketing qualified leads, MQLs, which then turn into sales qualified leads, SQLs, etc. That in itself, it's created its own kind of beast that has required companies to create quite sophisticated structures in order to deal with that demand. And actually, whether or not you've downloaded an ebook or whether or not you've attended a webinar isn't really a significant sales trigger or an indication that anyone really wants to buy your product. You, Tim, myself, we're constantly reading stuff online, and we see something we're interested in and we download it, or we read it, or we attend it, or we sign up to watch it. And the reality is that 9 times out of 10, we don't read the ebook, we don't attend the webinar, we don't watch the recording, and we'd love to, but the reality of life is, with family and work and everything else, is there's just not enough hours in the day, and new things come in on top, and they just kind of throw everything out. So companies have realized that really that kind of lead generation, demand generation isn't perhaps the best way to engage with your market. And that market is a market of customers and prospects. So account-based marketing has been around in many guises for many years, but particularly around, people are very familiar with the term key account management, which came out of Cranfield Business School many, many years ago. And account-based marketing is nothing more and nothing less than just targeting one account as a market of one. So you treat one account as being a complete market in itself. So rather than thinking about individuals or buyer personae, or I'm going to target marketing managers, or I'm going to target purchasing managers, etc., you say, I'm going to target one account. So you spend your time and your effort thinking about that one account. And that, in essence, is what account-based marketing is.
And so one of the things I remember our previous company, when we said we're going to do account-based marketing, the salespeople went, "Oh, that's brilliant. Well, that's marketing's job then, isn't it?"
Well, and the great news, actually, this kind of angst and friction and that exists or has existed forever between sales and marketing, this has to disappear with account-based marketing, because you are in effect creating one team, one culture, one focus for the company, which is to go after an account. And when you talk to, and this is definitely the case when we're talking to our clients, when you talk to somebody and you say, well, actually, you need to bring together sales and marketing because we are going to target an account. This then changes the conversation completely for sales, because sales can understand because they win accounts. They don't win people. They don't win buyer personae. They don't win, decision makers. They win a new logo. They win a new badge. They win a new client. And so that language, that shift in language automatically kind of breaks down a lot of the barriers. And then salespeople can clearly say to marketing, finally, you're speaking our language.
Yeah, one of the things that I think that I've seen with account-based marketing is that it's often seen as therefore marketing's job. Whereas when at my previous company, there were seven people that did always did their number, and when they did it, it was over 200%. And so we did some research on those people, and those people always had like 200 contacts in an account, whereas everybody else was like talking to one or two or five. Where and they'd go, well, of course you've got 200 people, but there's we either need to sell in there, or there's lots of people that can buy. And I know that smaller companies selling to smaller organizations may not have 200 people, but you can have 5, 10, 20, 50 contacts in an account. I mean, if you look at the Gartner research that says nowadays B2B enterprise have at least 10 people who are decision makers, you've got to spread out. So anyway, so we've decided that we're going to focus on 1 or 5 or a handful of accounts. How do we actually pick those accounts?
Well, the account selection process is actually the basis of this, really. And when you think about the kind of the pyramid, which many people show and talk about for lead generation, where you create the demand, you then generate the interest, you then nurture, you then convert. That pyramid, you completely invert it for account-based marketing, and the base of the pyramid for account-based marketing is the account selection.
Right.
So you're thinking about who do I want to go after, and the decisions about how and why. Generally when we speak to our clients, the first thing we ask our clients is, what kind of accounts do you want? And that conversation is quite an illuminating conversation, because we say, what kind of clients do you have? Which ones work well for you? Which ones are profitable? Which ones are easy to sell into? Which ones do you find stay with you for the longest period of time? So by having these kind of conversations about what is the ideal best fit account, then we say to our clients, well, would you like some more of those? And obviously the answer is yes. So we use that as the foundation to say, well, what works for you now? And what would you like more of? And if the client, rather than just saying, hey, we want to win, more FTSE 100, we want to win more Fortune 500, and very often, companies, no matter what size they are, they're not really that sophisticated in terms of how they're thinking about their account selection and their targeting selection. So when we ask them these kind of questions around their existing customers, it helps them to kind of really kind of distill down what kind of customers they want more of, and then we can obviously then work on that as the basis and use an awful lot of our data techniques, and we use intent data to understand what's happening in the market, and we interrogate what's happening with their clients, etc. But the basis is the account selection, and if you can get the account selection process right, then everything else that you build up from there will have a very solid foundation.
Okay, so it's about, I think it's about getting your ideal customer criteria, because most companies, what they would have done is that they go out and they sell stuff, and they don't really, we sold one, and then you sell another one, but you don't actually sit down and go, this is the type of organization and the type of people that we sell to. And I think that's a great exercise in itself, working out where you can sell and where you can't sell, because one of the things that you get to learn in life is not everybody likes you.
Correct. And I think what we call the ideal customer profile, or the ICP, working hard on that and really asking some tough questions of your C-suites, the people who are running the business, as well as the sales and marketing leaders, about really what is your ideal customer profile. And that is obviously, what I mentioned earlier in terms of what kind of accounts are working for you, which geographic location, what size, what turnover, what industries, and obviously at the moment with the whole COVID-19, this has turned everything on its head. So obviously any company who is addressing the hotel, the retail, the travel industry are having to reinvent themselves, or they're going to be very quickly out of business. So trying to work out what your ICP is and where you can go and get more of them is really, really important.
And as I say, it's a great exercise in itself, working out about that. So, I mean, one of the things that I've seen in the past is that we did an exercise where we profiled accounts and said we've got gold accounts, silver accounts, and bronze accounts. And one of the account managers walked into the silver accounts and said, "Yeah, we've profiled you, and you haven't made the gold things." And they basically went ballistic. And so what would then happen is that someone would sell something and immediately say, "It's got to be a gold account." And actually, it's like, yeah, but doesn't meet the criteria. So how do you stop that sort of people then saying, adding to the pile of what a good account should look like?
Well, it all starts at the very beginning. We run workshops where we sit down and do this account selection and ICP, ideal customer profiling, and we get everyone around the table. So the sales and marketing team are all sitting at the same table, and they're all actually, contributing to actually build this profile. And once it's actually built, it is really a kind of like a light bulb moment. And because people very often, what you just said, Tim, people are always adding to the pile. And there's always an exception, right? Oh, we've just won a client in Turkey, or we need to
it's strategic.
Or we've just won a new client in this industry. We need to go and get more clients in that industry. Clearly, that's working for us. But there is so much anecdotal work out there. The reason why you want X, Y, Z doesn't actually necessarily mean there is a pot of gold at the end of that rainbow. And I think if you, or a leprechaun, and I think the reason, if you can really work hard on defining your clients and the type of clients you want, then it's a really solid way to go forward. And it avoids all the kind of arguments and it just really helps you to focus your business. Because I was talking to somebody the other day about account-based marketing and we were reflecting on it. And they just said to me, account-based marketing it's more important than sales or marketing. It's a business-wide. It's the whole organization has to pivot around account-based marketing, and it no longer belongs to marketing, and it no longer belongs to sales. It belongs to the whole company. The CEO, the CFO, the COO, everyone's involved, and that changes the dynamic, because then everyone's asking questions like, is this one of our ICP? Should we be working with this company, etc. Everyone knows the question to ask.
Yeah, because it could include profitability of the company. It could include the cash flow of the company as being one of the ICP criteria. It's not just because the sales leader says these are the people that we're going to sell to. I agree with you. It's a fundamental strategic positioning of the business. So we've worked out our ICP, our ideal customer profile. We've decided to go down this route. Then what do we do?
Well, once you've obviously worked out your account selection and you know what kind of accounts you want to go after, you then typically, obviously, you need to do, there's an awful lot of data work involved, and that data work is involved in understanding the verticals and what we call clusters. So very typically what you would do is you would cluster the accounts that you want to go after. So for example, you might be going after fintech or HR tech or cybersecurity. And even within those clusters, there could be, other reasons why you might need to go smaller. But for example, what we typically say to clients is, depending which type of ABM program they're looking to do, and obviously you're familiar, Tim, obviously with, one-to-many, one-to-few, one-to-one, and obviously these programs will be determined by the type of customers you're going after and the level of engagement that you have with those customers. So obviously one-to-many is much more of a wider stroke, going after much more customers at the same time, using technology. One-to-few and then one-to-one is when you're really narrowing down. You're saying, hey, we want to work with these 15 accounts. And what's interesting about ABM, it's not just about winning clients or winning customers. It's also about engaging existing customers. So what tends to happen is the shift as you move from one-to-many to one-to-few to one-to-one programs. Very often the shift is moving from acquisition to engagement to loyalty. Because as you said rightly earlier, and you've worked for some very, very large corporations, these are enormous corporations that have enormous, number of buying units. And the fact that you're working with one small part of Microsoft doesn't mean that Microsoft is your client. And we're talking about multi-billion-dollar organizations in 100+ countries rather, and so it's very often ABM is used for purely engagement and trying to expand what we call the decision-making unit, or the DMU, and trying to go into other business units and trying to introduce your company and your services across geographies and across units.
Yeah, it's interesting because you say, oh, we've signed this company, and that company, you actually, it may be in a very small part of that company, if you take take something like Vodafone, which is a mobile company in the UK. Each of the different countries where Vodafone operate, Turkey, Egypt, etc., are decision-making units in their own right and can make decisions. And even while the corporation may say there's a direction, Egypt can turn around and say, well, that doesn't work for me because we're a different market.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that if you've got something that is applicable to a telco company, it's probably applicable to Egypt, even though Egypt is saying they're very different from a marketplace perspective. So I know we used to call it about share of wallet because, of course, we were American corporations, so it was about money.
Yeah.
But it's also about going and actually, and in the world of COVID-19, if your pipeline has fallen off a cliff, the best place to go is your existing clients, and actually pivot, to use the word, your resource from going out and hunting for stuff that probably isn't there, and actually hunting for stuff in your existing clients.
Yeah, and I think there's always this kind of sense, and you've obviously been involved in sales and marketing for years as well. There's this kind of almost this need to keep winning, and the reality is that what you should be doing and spending more time is nurturing and farming, and I think ABM is a great play for that, because you quite rightly said Vodafone. I mean, there are dozens, if not hundreds, of marketing agencies working inside of Vodafone. And so the fact is that if we were working with Vodafone as an agency, we would just be one agency of many.
Yeah.
May well be working with one country, but within one country with one product line. So it's the same thing within our own industry. And I think, there's, when we talk about ABM, very often we talk about the 3 R's. And that is, when you run an ABM program, you look to develop the reputation, the relationships, and the revenue. Now, obviously, everyone always focuses on the revenue and says, oh, we need to win more clients, we need to get more revenue, we need to develop more pipeline, we need to grow, etc. But invariably, in order to get more revenue, you need to develop your reputation. So you need to be able to influence those accounts. You need to be able to build relationships in those accounts, as you were quite rightly saying.
Building trust and...
Yeah, and also across those markets, as you said, Egypt or Turkey, for example, you need to enhance your credibility so people know you and trust you. That's from a reputation point of view. But then when you move on to, for example, relationships, then you need to obviously work out, as you were saying quite rightly earlier, Tim, what is that decision-making unit? Who's involved? And is obviously the sales are involved, marketing involved, is the CFO involved? And very often when you scratch below the surface, and I've been involved in obviously, companies of greater, size or whatever, and you find that there are lots of people involved, and there's lots of people who have a say. And it may well be they're not the decision maker, but they're definitely going to look at the PowerPoint. They're definitely going to review the pricing. Somebody's going to get involved in looking at the contract. And then somebody will probably Google you to look at you and say, well, who is this guy? Who is this company? What's this all about? I don't know. I don't like the sound of this. And so unless you can get sufficient, weight behind your bid, so to speak, you're always going to have somebody in that organization that's pushing you out because they know somebody better, or they think they can recommend, or quite simply they've got an opinion, of which we've all got an opinion. So relationships is really key, and obviously just deepening that relationship and what we call advocacy, which is huge, which is getting people to speak on your behalf, and looking for champions within your clients, or even indeed within your prospects. And we find it actually that a lot of times we're with a lot of our content marketing, our social selling, a lot of the work that we do that you referenced earlier, and you see what we're doing on LinkedIn. Very often we've got prospects that we're talking to for 2, 3, 4 years.
Yeah.
And these are ongoing conversations, and it's not the case that they don't want to work with us as an agency. It's just the timing isn't right, or they've got other priorities.
That's a really important point, Declan. Yeah.
But they're engaging, and we see that, and then and we see the spot, almost like the advocacy or the sponsorship that they're reflecting by commenting on our content or passing it on, or we know that they've sent it internally. So there's a huge job of work to be done here.
Yeah, and I think that the point that you made about reputation, relationship, and revenue is really important. I mean, one of the things that the big issues that salespeople will have right now is that they're just another salesperson with just another product. And how do you differentiate yourself? And if you can get someone to refer you internally, that's a great, I was going to say leg up, but I don't know whether that translates. It's a great way of, and okay, the person that may refer to may have a not invented here attitude, as in, we're Egypt and we're different. But the fact of the matter is, it's so powerful to have a referral, but to have an internal referral and say, and the person, I've seen people, because people justify their decisions. They're not going to say, well, it's unlikely they're going to say we bought a system and it's crap. What they're going to do is going to say it's brilliant. You need to get it as well. And quite often, I mean, I've set up calls where you just let the people talk, and then you say, right, you're on a reference call. You say, right, meet person, right? Okay, I'm now leaving, and you go off the call, and you get them talk because people always justify their decision.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go on.
No, I was going to say that, just adding to that point. Ultimately, when you're talking to any customer or any prospect, and whether they're working with a subsidiary of a much larger organization, whether everything's decentralized or centralized, etc., of which there are many flavors out there. What we ask clients and prospects is, what do you want to achieve? Just paint me a picture of 12 months, 18 months, or even go shorter, 6 months. What are you looking to achieve? What are the things that are not working for you at the moment, or what do you want more of? So we very often say to clients, do you want to win more accounts? Do you want to penetrate more accounts? Do you want to do do you want to do better cross-selling, upselling? Do you want to change perception of the market, of your brand or of your products? Do you want to win, tenders, RFPs, bids, or do you just simply want to win new logos? And those four buckets, or those four kind of major, what we call the context for ABM, when we kind of talk to our clients and the market, we just ask them to articulate what are they trying to achieve, and we can then by them explaining to us, and then the time frame that they have in mind for that then allows us to work on which is the best ABM program, if indeed ABM is the right program for them, because it's not always the right program. It's not, ABM doesn't work in all situations.
Yes, and I'm glad that you said that, because I think sometimes I see agencies out there and they say we're an ABM agency, and then basically, if you give someone a hammer, everything's a nail. And sometimes ABM isn't right. But so I'm sold on ABM, and I want to start on Monday. So what would I do if I wanted to start on Monday, apart from obviously phone you up?
Well, once we go through the whole telephone conversation, etc., as I said, we go through this very detailed process with our clients, and where we go through the whole account selection, we do the whole kind of mapping out what we call the decision-making units. We try to understand who's involved in the process. We go through understanding the industry and the vertical and the cluster. So what we tend to do is, we do a lot of deep research around that. And then that will then inform a lot of the content strategy. So, we were involved in and we've published it on our website with one of our clients called Axiom, which they're a kind of a global data leader. And one of the key parts there was creating deep insights for the verticals that they were targeting. So one vertical they were targeting was the automotive industry. And they were obviously with the kind of the very kind of deep data that they have around automotive, around buyer and consumer information, and why you buy your car, why I buy my car, an awful lot of very detailed information that manufacturers want to learn. So that allowed us to build some very, very interesting insights, which we could then promote and play into that automotive vertical, which would then spark the conversation, spark the dialogue, create those kind of moments of conversation. And then you can then take those conversations through a whole series of ABM programs, which will be, where do people hang out? What's their social channel? What's their offline channel? So what works well for them? I mean, are we looking at, an event strategy? And obviously at the moment with COVID-19, everything has gone completely out the window. But prior to that, most ABM programs would have a very much of a online part and an offline part. The offline part might be, for example, industry meetings or kind of one-on-one executive dinners, etc. But now, obviously, with COVID, things have changed somewhat. But you take the client through this whole process really of very much firmly thinking about the data. We're a huge supporter of what we call intent data, and I think Tim, we've spoken about this before, but we're very lucky that we have access to some very, very unique insights which actually inform us of what is actually happening in the market. And it all sounds a little bit kind of Star Trek-y or a little bit kind of science fiction, but we can actually place a lens over the market and see the level of activity of accounts that you're looking to target and what they're actually interested in. And then that allows us to run very kind of sophisticated campaigns into those accounts and then into the actual buying unit inside of the accounts to such a level that we can actually run campaigns into the very same device, an iPhone or a tablet or a PC that actually is carrying out that research. So you, as the person, carrying out some research around X product, would be the only person to receive that campaign. So it goes from being quite a broad brush stroke down to very, one-to-one, where only you are being targeted and only you are receiving information that is of interest to you. And I think ultimately with ABM, as I mentioned, when you go from one-to-many to one-to-few to one-to-one programs, it's all about deeper and deeper and deeper personalization. And the more you can personalize, the more that I can talk to you,
yes,
and talk to what you as an individual, you as the role in your company, then we're going to have a greater success. And yourself from your own experience that personalization will unlock that door that other touch.
Yeah, and it's not just personalization; it's relevance. And because personalization, it could be personalization could be white male, middle class, which we're both of a group. But relevance is that that we're two different individuals.
Yeah.
So people that are wanting to start this, should they start with a pilot or should they go with everything, or how is it that they should, if they were thinking of doing it? Because it must be kind of scary. We're in a situation where we've got, we're used to this outbound way that we've been working for a long time that you described at the beginning of the call, and now we're switching. So what is it that you can to help people so it's not quite so scary?
Yeah, I mean, we use the term daunting sometimes because people think there are so many moving parts involved in ABM, and there are. We can't negate the fact there are many moving parts, and very often what we look for with our ideal customer is to make sure we have some very, very strong support within the company, within the marketing and sales team, because it's never going to work. We always look for that level of support. And one of the things from our own ICP point of view is when we're looking to work with the right companies is, do they have the right infrastructure internally to be able to make this program a success? Because if we're the only people rowing, so to speak, to use a kind of a sporting analogy, if we're the only people doing the movement, it's just not going to work. So we need to be in tandem with those inside the company. So very often we do what you mentioned actually with regards to pilot. We do very often do kind of 6-month pilots, and it can't really be any shorter, because an ABM program, as opposed to a demand generation or a lead generation program, which you can get up and running quite successfully in 2 months, 3 months, an ABM program tends to need a runway of 6 months in order for it to hold, because there's about 3 months of planning involved at the very beginning. So what we find with some of our clients is that we start with a 6-month program. We set some very clear benchmarks with them, and we've got this quite cool return on investment ROI calculator, which we can show them, which kind of shows what does it look like, what does the future look like, what does here to 6 months look like in terms of how many accounts will you engage, what level of engagement will you achieve, what's the value of the pipeline that you're going to achieve in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. And once they can see the kind of make the intangible tangible, it then becomes a lot less scary and a lot less daunting. And then it's just down to the mechanics of, have you got your account data information? Can you share it with us? Can you share what content you've created? We can repurpose that content. Talk us through your decision-making units. Tell us who you'd like to target. We can work on that. And then we just kind of expand the campaigns from there, really. And then we layer on top what you quite rightly mentioned earlier, which is this whole thing around context, relevance, and timing, which is, making sure that whatever you are putting out there is relevant, is being sent with the right context, and obviously is landing at the right time.
Yeah. Declan, that's been fantastic. I'm really insightful. It's wonderful. It's amazing it goes so quickly. 30 minutes and here we are. So remind everybody where they can get hold of you.
Thank you, Tim. Well, thank you once again for having me. And once again, everyone, you can find me on LinkedIn, Declan Mulkeen, CMO of Strategic IC.
Fantastic. Declan, thank you so much for today and your time. And I'm sure I'm going to see you on social over the next few weeks and months. So thank you very much, and good luck.
Thank you very much, Tim.
Thanks, Declan. Thanks. Bye.